Welcome, dear listener. I'm Kat Davis,
And I'm Erin Riley.
and this is Surviving Service. On today's episode, Erin and I welcome our very first guest on Surviving Service, Barbi Alexander. Barbi has a history in medicine and has worked at all levels of government, and she's just an overall local mover and shaker. When I met Barbi, her energy was just contagious, and I could just tell. She's somebody who goes out into the community and she gets things done. We used this opportunity to dive into what is it that keeps us going when it's so hard, when it feels impossible to move forward. And we get into this idea of a survivor mindset, a survivor personality. A trait among those of us that are stubbornly unwilling to let go of the idea that we can build a future worth fighting for, and that we don't have to perpetuate harm or exploit others while we do it. What is it about us that makes us want to keep fighting? What does it take? How do we work together, and what gives us energy to keep going? We had a ton of fun talking to Barbi, so we're so excited to share this with you all. But before you dive in, I want to share a content advisory. We get into some heavy topics in this episode. We have discussions around things like people who've ended their own lives, experiences of abuse and trauma. So if you're not in the place for that today, that's okay. I invite you to take a step back and take care of yourself. We'll catch you next time. So with that, I invite you to take a deep breath and ground into this moment. Let's dive in. Barbi, we're so excited to have you as our very first guest on Surviving Service. Thank you for being our guinea pig, and I knew you were going to bring all the hype and all the energy and all the joy, which I think is something we could all use right now. And
Agreed.
just in terms of even like surviving service, I got to meet Barbi through a board committee that I get to oversee in my work. And to a lot of people, that probably doesn't sound like an exciting thing, but this committee brings me so much joy and strength and energy and connection, and just getting to work with Barbi on this amazing movement of like advancing climate action through public education has just been such a joy. And so I was like, you know what? Barbi is such a mover and shaker in all the spaces and all the things. I just am so inspired by all the amazing work that you do. So I was like, I have to create a space where we can capture some of that magic that you offer. So with that, I would love to just kick us off by creating some space for you to be able to share a little bit about what service means to you and how you became somebody who gets involved, and like, everything you do is to make the thing that you are doing better, right? And like you can't help it. It's like something that you like,
Can't
it's
help
all in your nature, whether you want it to or not. You're gonna,
it.
everything you touch is gonna be magic. And so I wanted to make some space for you to be able to share what your service story is and what that even means to you, to introduce yourself into this space.
Wow. Well, okay. First of all, Kat, the first thing I was thinking when I joined the meeting today was how it felt. I was really excited to be with like-minded people.
Mm.
I like immediately when I met you, I saw someone that was also genuinely passionate, and it looks different. And I'm gonna throw a lot at you, but I know you're gonna be able to keep up because I know
Heck
who
yeah.
you are.
Heck yeah.
And I think you nailed me too. I definitely am humbled by I'm like speechless at the introduction, and I'm humbled by the thought that you do see my genuine want to serve the community. And it's like so characterologic. And I have a question for you, because I think that it comes from how we're raised. I'm wondering if you had service instilled from a young age. Like, was it an expectation in your home? Like, how was service presented to you, if you can remember the first, because and if you can hold on that and think on it while I tell you, for me, when I was 11, I was bored and I said, Mom, I'm bored. And she said, well, you better go find something to do because the world is not going to entertain you. And so I rode my bike up to Mount Tabor Convalescent Center, which is now Pioneer School. So I rode my banana seat bike up there in 1981, and I went up to the front desk all sweaty and dirty in the summer and asked the nurse that was at the front desk if there was anything I could do. And she said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, I want to help. And my mom said I should come up here and, ask if there was anything I could do. So they started me out and they said, yeah, we've got some things you can do. And these nurses put me to work. They had me taking newspapers, and then I got to meet the residents. And a lot of the women, I had a salon day, and I would bring up nail polishes and I would do their toes and I would talk to them because, I like to talk. And then I graduated to I got to plan the monthly birthday party, which was my suggestion that we should have a monthly celebration, and I brought all the residents down to the room. But I can't remember a time that I have not wanted to help people, and I've never thought of remuneration because it's not about that for me. So if that, like, because I've been really thinking about service, and like, honestly, it's one of the things that I'm most passionate about. And also that I feel like it's critical that we include it as part of a curricula, because many people don't get it from their home. And we're losing that connection to what it means to serve, and serve for the purpose of the body, the demosocracy, the decision of the body, the people. So, what does that mean when we're serving people and we're looking for a higher peace that sometimes is unnameable until it begins to form? And I think I moved on to, I did the St. Vincent's Junior Guild program, which just means I was a candy striper. And then I've always served. I served at Portland State University, and I led the Minority Health Council. And I also helped establish Hands on Health, which was a collaborative effort addressing health disparities in minority and underserved populations. But for me, and this is going to be the piece that needs, I think, a lot of explanation, is that for me, it's less about minority doesn't automatically mean Black. Minority means the person in the room that doesn't have a voice. It's so esoteric for me, and contextual, and it's context, because it so is privilege. And so there's so many things when we talk about equity. I'm like, what do you really mean by that? Because it's a word that people use that has power, but I don't know if they necessarily are helping the cause by using the word without the intention. But for me, it was really about underserved populations, because in each health condition, the population that can have the highest, morbidity or mortality or negative outcomes doesn't necessarily have to be Black. And I love John Powell's, he uses an example for targeted universalism, where he talks about suicide rate in the United States, and it's highest in white men. And we know this. And if we were trying to address minority populations and we were following that paradigm, would we want to raise Black males' suicide rate so that we're trying to get to that white male equivalents or parity. And in this example, if we're trying to address suicidality in the United States, we would be wanting to target specific programs that address the population in need. And in this case, it's white men. And so I think we need to be able to have that conversation. But
Yeah.
I think that tells you a little bit about, I think, who I am and yeah, where I'm going. It feeds me by being able to help people. And I can't explain that. And
Yeah.
not everybody's like that. I get
Yeah.
Right.
No, it's like a calling. Yeah. I appreciated your question around and your perspective of how you were raised and growing up with this idea of like helping others. And I appreciate you also making some space for me to noodle on it a little bit while while you're able to
it.
share your story.
Yeah.
But I think that's a really special question, and I appreciate that you were like, this is also just an attribute of somebody, I think, in this like service space is that you came on to be a guest and you came actually with a question for us, which is really funny. I love that. You're like, no,
Love
I'm
it.
gonna like bring something to you and like solicit this from you. And so what I want to share is that I grew up in a way where my family both received and offered a lot of help and a lot of community and a lot of care. There was times and spaces where we needed a place to stay and we were welcomed with open arms by, well, by friends of our family that create a safe space for us to be in, which was really beautiful when we needed it. And similarly, when I was growing up, I had a lot of friends that needed a safe space to come to, and my home became that space. And so my mom created a space where she welcomed all of my brother and my friends who were similarly from kind of tumultuous home environments and they needed a safe space to be. And so I think the word that I've said now many times in the last 5 seconds was safety. And I think that that's something that I believe deeply in creating an environment where people can feel safe enough to explore their creativity and their passion and kind of see that magic that comes out of them when they have a chance to not be in survival mode. And since I personally experienced
So,
a lot of that feeling of not being safe in a lot of different spaces, just to a lot of different factors and intersectionality in my life, both from being a queer kid in Idaho to being in a like economic, like trying to respect the privacy of my family, but also like be vulnerable enough to share that we had our struggles and everyone that I knew growing up in my area had some kind of like untraditional family dynamic is I guess what I'll call it. And so whether our friends were in like an abusive household or in a, really hard economics point or whatever, our couches and our beds were always open to whoever needed them. And similarly, that was offered to us. And so me growing up, I didn't even think of it as a service thing. It was just truly a community thing. And then I became very
mm,
passionate
mm,
and upset and angry as every good high schooler does when I became to really understand the level of which power was making it unsafe for, LGBTQ kids to exist anywhere. We have in Idaho like a really high mortality rate among trans and just queer youth. There's a really high suicidality rate around trans youth
mm,
everywhere.
mm,
And I was just heartbroken, by that. I'd experienced, had friends who had taken their lives when I was younger, and I just
mm,
grew up being very like fiercely, passionately, and angrily dedicated to speaking up and fighting against anything that was going to bring that sense of unsafety to anyone's life to the point where they just didn't want to be here anymore. And so, whether that was around like safe spaces in schools, and then when I took it like an AP environmental studies class in high school because it was like the only science AP class that didn't have a lab because I was not, I was an art kid. I didn't want to
mm.
do science. But my teacher is
No lab
so
check.
yeah, I was like, I'm going to art school. I don't need the science stuff. I just want the AP credit. But I had this teacher who was so amazing at sharing the connection between the harm of the environment and the harm of people, and really did this whole like environmental justice approach to teaching about environmental systems. And it was
Mhm.
beautiful. And I was so angry. And I was like, this
Mhm.
is messed up. I didn't understand because I did not grow up like, as a with a granola family who like did stuff I out in the world and, whatever. I didn't think twice about the environment
Mhm.
until I took this class and then I saw this connection and I was like, what? I'm so mad because I was an angry kid. I'm still angry, but I have a smile on. So,
Oh, I was just really impressed. I mean, I see it as empathy,
oh,
you
totally,
know?
yeah.
Yeah. And so when you're presented with injustice, whether it is, or, so many of the complex issues that exist between the environment and the people's needs. And it was something that you said when you were talking about your mom. And I feel like your mom would probably agree that life should be lived with an open hand, ready to
Mhm.
receive and ready to give equally. I find it very interesting because I think if we could teach kids the lesson that everything is context and perspective, and living with an open hand. Because when I was growing up, I I was 10, number 10 that my parents raised, and
Wow.
so that meant I was mostly feral. And
Yeah.
then, through the 70s, when if you remember, Carter was president, and there was an economic downturn, and it was a recession, and there were gas lines. And I distinctly remember my grandmother who raised me. When I was 5, my mother committed suicide, on Memorial Day.
Oh, I'm sorry
And
to hear that.
yeah, oh, it's part of the story. It's
Yeah.
part of the story. It used to, like, being my age now, like, it happened when I was 5. So it was
Yeah.
50 years ago. And she killed herself. At least that was the story. But my grandmother would never accept that. And so she had kind of created a conspiracy theory, or several. And I was raised with that. But I'm very, very logical, almost. If I wasn't so tangential, I would say I was a linear thinker. It's just that I'm making rapid connections and I'm keeping it all, because when you put it all together. So it's
Mm.
just interesting. You know what I mean? I'm very strategic. I think of, like, I'm always like, but if we do, and they're like, what is this? And I'm like, no, 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 this is going to happen. Trust me. I already know because of need, want, going through that
Mm.
list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why I think I was really excited to introduce you to Erin as well, because Erin and I both also have that kind of brain. And Barbie, you and I have seen this when we're together and we just like spiral up and
Yes.
talk about
Well, and
what's
I'm
possible.
glad you
But
called
I
Erin
want
it,
to,
because I
yeah,
haven't heard from Erin at all.
I know.
She's
Yeah.
probably watching, going, "What's happening?"
No, not at all. Thank you so much for sharing. And yeah, I really loved your question about how we got into service. And I think it's interesting because I'm going to say my mom too.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. So my mom, actually, when I first really saw her of service, we lived in Fort Collins, Colorado, and her best friend died from AIDS. So
oh,
she started the AIDS project there,
Mhm.
that has actually become very big. And they've changed their names. I found out that it's like a real big
Fort
big
Collins. Yeah, it sure
yeah,
is.
organization.
And she
Yeah.
yeah.
started that?
Yeah, she helped
Outstanding.
start that.
Outstanding.
That's
That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
amazing.
Yeah, and so again, it's because her best friend passed away and she wanted to do
Yeah.
something. And I think I've just always seen her as being in service. And then we started to do it together. When I actually was like 10, I had a teacher who was very into animals and taking care of animals, and she had the Humane Society come out. And so my mom and I started to work at the Humane Society together, like volunteer and walking dogs. And we did that together
Mm.
until I stop doing that because I was a
Mhm.
teenager who was just like,
Too cool for it.
yeah, I don't know what to do. Well,
No.
teenage years can be a trial, and for sure lived in an area that was a lot more conservative. And I thought, like, oh, I should put myself into a box as opposed to being my own person at
Mm.
that time.
Erin,
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you. You spoke to my heart. My son's 14 right now, and he is too cool for school. And this kid, when he was like 18 months, he used to almost, this is hilarious and sad, but I taught Sunday school, and he would go because he knew that we could leave, but we volunteered for a church that you had to set the whole thing up.
Mm.
And so we had to put the chairs up. And he was like 18 months. Like, we have video of him trying to get people off the chairs. And he's trying to get the folding chair, and he's like this little man. And it's just hilarious he won't even help his mom water the front lawn. He is too cool for school. He's like,
Right.
maybe later.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I hear that, and when you said that conservative piece, that fitting in, right? Like, I just want to take you back to that, because that was really beautiful, because it's such a good reminder, because I felt frustrated, and
Yeah.
it's a period of time, right?
Right. Right. Exactly. And, it's like, I look back at that and I feel like sometimes when people meet me now, they have one picture of me. I have folks who are like, oh, you must have been like the cat, this outspoken artsy person. And I said, no,
The
not at all. I actually was very much like, I have to fit in with this group. I'm tired of being on the outside. And so, and
mm,
not that I didn't love participating in sports. I really did love participating in sports, but I definitely was like, no, I will be a jock, and I will
mm,
I just don't want to put myself out
mm.
for what how am I trying to say this for ridicule. I don't know. I just felt
Yeah.
very on the outside a lot, and I thought, okay,
Mm.
well, maybe I can fashion myself to
Into safety.
be yeah, into say exactly, into safety. And
Mhm.
so but
Mhm.
then you get out you get out
Yeah.
in the world, and
Mhm.
I ended up doing something that nobody thought I was gonna do, which was join the military. And, just like, yeah,
That's a big family
yeah,
right there.
yeah, yes.
That's a strong, powerful family
Mhm.
that is centered around an ideal.
Yeah. I appreciate you saying that because I think it's always been. And I'm gonna say it's probably because watching my mom, I've always been wanted to be part of a community, and I did not wanna do I've never really wanted to do things alone. I think that's what was part of the, um, "Oh, no, I just wanna be part of a group," but I also wanna be part of a group who are making changes. I want to be a part of something that's bigger. I will say that, usually I'm the person who's like, "Let's all do this group project together, and let's all
Yes,
make some changes." Like,
I
there's
love
gonna
it.
be some frustrating parts, but, like, let's look at the bigger picture and let's do something because we can make that change. And that's definitely where I pivoted into where I'm at now, in my life and in my career.
Mhm.
I love that. I love that, because that's what I would aspire to, right? That's something I aspire to, Erin. So I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
So I just really appreciate being reminded. Thank you, Erin.
The finding safety whenever you can, especially if you've been, you know, targeted in the past and trying to conform to find safety. Or I think it's interesting that we all shared either direct or tangential experience with loss at a young age, and
Mm,
understanding that fragility and having a deeper sense of like that need for community and that need for that power that community brings, is a huge, I think, driver and motivator for a lot of us in this work. And I think when we're younger, there's a desire to either fit into something like that or to completely break out of it to like kind of form your own space. I was definitely a breaker outer. I was described as a extra from a Tim Burton movie when I was in high school. And casually led some walkouts and
Oh, nice.
bucket protests and stuff.
Yeah.
But realizing the humility of, as empathetic as I am, I really don't understand other people's stories, and like having that humility is something that has led me to really valuing hearing people's stories. And that's why I'm excited about this like podcast space and bringing on guests like Barbie so we can hear people's stories and hear where they're coming from and hear how they're navigating how hard it can be to have this desire to make your community better and to serve your community and to create a space of healing and to like do the best that you can, especially in, I know that you have an experience in large bureaucracies, Barbie, like especially trying to like make anything good happen in these huge systems that are designed to be unchanging. And so I wanted to, use this space too to just kind of pick
Mm.
your brain and ask you, like, you have such a strategic mind, you have such a vision for what's possible. How do you manage
Mm.
working in bureaucracies as a person who, similarly, as you
Mm.
know, I've always been in awe of your positivity and your like vision and your dreaming. And my dreaming gets like, if I don't have a place to put that dreaming energy, I get frustrated and I get burned out. And so I've just been in awe of your ability to, I think you're a renewable source of energy. So like, I want to share that too. It's that you've got this energy that keeps on going, but I wanted to make some space for you to share kind of like how you've navigated that in your career so far and your non-career, because you also spend like all of your waking moments serving on boards and volunteering.
I haven't thought about it like that. I know that one thing. Okay, so Dr. Barry Sears, he wrote a book, The Survivor Personality.
Mm.
I met him at a talk up at the old medical school, and he was talking about his book. And I have a copy somewhere signed, super precious to me, because he said, "You have it." And I said, "I have what?" Because and he said, "You have the survivor personality." So there are some people that they can experience trauma, experience loss, experience all of these things. They survive. Their brain is wired to be resilient, to be more resilient than others, because we know that some people, and here's the statistic that I think is, I love this, because it's really about what you just said, Kat. It's about safety. And when we think about abuse, we know that almost 100%, 100%, that's not an exaggerated statistic, that is an actual number of the people that abuse, that are arrested and convicted for some sort of abuse, whether it's sexual, whether it's against physical abuse, whatever it is, 100% were abused themselves. But only 33% of people that were abused go on to abuse. So we know it's a red flag, right? We know, but 33%, only 33%, that means 2/3 of the people do not go on to abuse. And if we can figure out what's different, if we can figure out what they got that the other 33% did not get, we could remove that. And if we put that power back into people and tap into what is that thing that 2/3 of the people have got, we could improve and reduce suffering, improve people's lives. And that piece is so powerful. That drives me, right? That drives me because I don't abuse. I was abused and I don't abuse. I can't even think about why I go on to, like, even when I feel myself like want to yell at my kid or something, I think immediately about how that might impact him. I am able to intercede and not act. So it's ABCs, right? If we're looking at cognitive behavioral therapy, we have our antecedent, we have our behavior, and we have our consequence. So how do we make that change at the antecedent level so we can stop the behavior. And that's how we change consequences. So you asked me the question about how do I do change? It's all about relationships. Everybody's got a different motivator. And there are so many people, especially in public service, especially in public agencies, that have been beat down and or because of the system, because the policy wasn't written, so there's no opportunity, so there's no funding, there's no line code, there's no you've heard all the things about why we can't do it, or we've always done it this way, or somebody doesn't know, well, well, who's doing this? Well, I don't know, but somebody is. You don't need to worry about it. Either it's not in our scope. As long as we have that mindset, that's all the mindsets that stop the change, right? But if you can connect with the right people and give them the right information that they need, let them think it's their idea. And sometimes it's about policy change, but sometimes it's about just befriending one person and giving them the right information. And now they think that's a great idea. And it changes things. And where you are able to intercede is, I think, the strength of your power in terms of that change management. But I get beat down. I've been told no, and I've watched train wrecks happen multiple times.
I really loved what you mentioned about the relationships, and also bringing that back to this. I'm just going to take it real existential really quick, the abuse side of things, because for one, I think the three of us all relate to that story and have experienced that, and now are actively trying to not to put the opposite energy into this world. And I think from a really systemic level, I think why I get so angry is because I see this system that is designed to cause trauma in people and is designed to perpetuate this trauma and this, abuse mentality at such a systemic level. And I am, we're in public education and in my field, and Erin's in the policy world at the federal level, and we're seeing in every single one of these huge public sectors these systems that keep getting implemented that actually create trauma and those conditions for I'm gonna call it systemic abuse.
I feel like at this point I feel like it's a risk driven policy, a negative
that's it.
perspective, risk avoidance, trauma based but not trauma informed.
There you go.
And when I say, and I gotta be honest, I would say dominant culture, right? It's dominant business capitalism, president business, so everything is negative, and it's coming from a place of risk aversion. And it is also coming from a place of, because it's compounded generationally, we haven't made, from a policy perspective, a space for creativity.
It's scarcity versus abundance.
For sure. Kat and I have talked a lot on and off this podcast about just systems, or I think at the beginning of the year a lot, at least for me, I talked about, man, there's the talk, and then there's the walk, and then there's the unwritten rules. And I feel like what burns folks out, especially in service, is being like, I can spot all these things, and why are we why aren't we pointing these things out? Why aren't we changing these things? This would and I think you brought that up too, Barbie, of just being able to have the ability to kind of see ahead really scares a lot of people, because they don't want to admit that. They don't. It's very scary. So
and they're in a crisis response always.
Yes, exactly. And I think Kat and I also bonded over that a lot when we first met each other, in a totally different space that actually has very low stakes. But
and
still
making mistakes.
And
making mistakes.
Oh yeah.
Who's to blame?
Right.
Who's to blame? And so then we don't do any lessons learned. It's nothing's continuous improvement. There's no
Right.
iterative processes built into any of our policies or structures that affords being able to, critically and not, well, I was just only doing, when you start hearing people's tone, like
Yeah.
I pick up on
Mm.
tone a lot.
Mm.
And it's very interesting where people feel attacked just because somebody brings
Mm.
like I'll say, well, what's the risk of not doing it? And boy, that'll send people to
Yeah.
complete defensiveness. And
Yeah.
I've had people that have watched me facilitate, and then afterwards they've been like they were on the edge of their seat because they thought something was gonna go off the
Mm.
rails, depending on the stakes, because I know how to get people to open up. And that, like, it's kind of a superpower, so I have to be careful. Well, I did not realize it was a superpower. I didn't even realize I had it, because
I love
because
that.
I couldn't figure out why everybody would tell me like really strange things, or like, like I would learn these things and then I realized, oh, I create safety.
Mm.
Yes.
And then I started thinking about how I do that.
Mm.
And it's, I think, my transparency and my accountability and my self accountability
And the
that,
authenticity. Yeah. People can feel it.
Oh man. But it does surely scare some people,
yeah, oh,
especially people who want to keep the status quo. When you start
And
doing
want to
that,
keep things surface or want to
yeah.
not be challenged
Yeah.
on their integrity and vulnerability. And
Yeah.
I think that's why we all get along, is
mm,
because I'm somebody who
mhm,
jumps right in with authenticity and vulnerability. And I
I
have a
love
hard time with like shallow surface level stuff. Like I don't know how to
it.
play that game very well. And I'm not very interested in it. I would much rather
Mm-mm.
just immediately be like, hey, I see your soul. What's up? Um,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
be like,
I love
yeah,
that.
dance around stuff. So I think that that's something that I think when we have all of those traits of really valuing and operating with authenticity and vulnerability and integrity and wanting to make things better and having this drive, not just drive, but like, being pulled to make things better and to see where it can be better, to be in a space where people are not operating with integrity or transparency and are doing things that are not sitting right with us, especially when we see where it's not working or where it's, going to cause a train wreck or where it's going to cause harm. I think that's where it can, for me, be so, I'm going to use the word toxic because it goes so
Mm,
incredibly against my core being that it's hard for me to be in those spaces.
mm.
And so it's interesting working in huge, public bureaucracies where you're
It's
doing a
where I get
mission
in trouble.
that where you get, yeah, me too, or you have something you really believe in, or you send the email and you
Mhm,
careful about the way you word it,
mhm.
but you send it because you
Yeah,
know it needs to
so
be sent
careful, so
and
careful.
because you believe in transparency and you believe in integrity and that the things that you're doing should be done right and they should be done well. That's such a careful line to be walking where you're like, I'm going to go with my where my core is telling me is the right thing to do.
Well, it's intellectual arbitrage.
Yeah, yeah.
You have
Yeah.
the ability to translate, but translate in structures and paradigms in ways that one, like an engineer, right? If you
Hmm.
go into a meeting with an engineer, if you use engineering examples, but
Hmm.
you're explaining financial things, or like why we're doing this, the why behind we're putting a building up, right? And they're incredibly exacting because of the risk, right?
Right.
Yeah. And so, but if you're trying to have a conversation to explain the why behind it, like how do you translate
Mm.
the why into the example that helps them go, oh, I get it. I get it. I immediately get it because you put this, you have that
Yeah.
intellectual push.
Yeah. I am in an interesting space where I work across all sectors and kind of academic fields. And so it's been interesting to get to translate across, because everyone's saying the same thing, they just say it differently, so it's been kind of a fun,
Mhm.
that's something I like to do. And
Mhm.
Erin and I commiserate a lot because Erin's trying to translate the importance of things to people who seem so unwilling to understand.
Yes,
um
Mhm.
actively being like, I'm not going to understand this at all.
Mhm.
I'm
Oh, it's
willfully
willfully incompetent.
ignorant
Ignorant, that's the word.
and working
mm,
against what their constituents are actually asking them to do.
Mm,
So
hmm.
it
A little
gets
bit
to
sticky.
be a struggle. We talk about the struggle of the week because in service, it's always there's always a struggle. My struggle of the week is the fact that something that the priority, the bill that I have been
Mm,
working on for the last 7 months,
the big one.
and the the BBB
mm,
bill
Mm,
mm,
was passed. Um,
mm,
and what's frustrating too sometimes is that you see the things that you've been trying to tell people, and then the
mm.
thing passes, and then people start freaking out, and you're like, "Wait, the things that we've been talking about," right?
yeah,
Where it's like,
Right.
well, we've been talking about this
The
for
train wrecks?
7 months or longer,
yeah.
and this is now going to be a real thing, and it's going to harm a lot of people. And what gets frustrating, and what was a struggle for me, was and what I joke about too is that feeling like, well, Erin, Medicaid is all on your shoulders. And if you
Yeah.
don't get these people to listen to you, then it's all gonna, it's all coming down to you. And I joke because that's not true. I have a very great work team, and we understand that we live in a very, very conservative state. And although we only have two senators and two congressmen, they actively do not listen to us. And
Oh,
Mm.
so,
yeah. Oh,
yeah,
that
so
tracks.
um, it's been a struggle for sure.
I feel your pain. I feel your pain.
I think for Aaron, for what you were sharing, I think it's really hard to be. I've said this so many times since November. I don't want to be right about the projection where I see things going. I don't want to have
Right.
to say, I told you so. I don't
No.
want any of that to happen. All I want is to be proven wrong and for all of this to work out fine and for people to not die and to feel really
Right.
silly for raising all of these red flags and saying the world, the sky was falling. And so it's really hard when people are coming to realize just how bad things are
Mm.
getting and to not have, like, I see some people reacting to like, oh yeah, this is what we said was going to happen, you get what you voted for. Like, I don't think
Oh,
that
the
that's healthy. I don't think that that's,
no,
I'm like, I just am like,
no.
no man, we need to come together and say like, yeah, I'm I'm sorry you were lied to, and maybe you needed to see this come into fruition for
Mm.
yourself. And welcome to the space where we will validate that like this is going to be a really hard couple of years.
Hmm.
So,
You,
Yeah.
if you really want to make impact with somebody, all you have to do is just get them to understand the thing. You
Hmm.
don't have to say anything else. So, I love this. There was a woman that I worked with, and she was on and on about Hillary Clinton and lock her up. And I would go walk with her, like at lunch or some walk over and get coffee or something. And she would be like, they just need to lock her up. And I
hmm,
said to her one day, I said, why? Because normally I was just quiet. I just didn't say
Mm.
anything because what am I going to say? And I just don't. It's at work. And God, I just don't have the energy today. And so I would just listen. And most of the time I just listen. But I just asked why. And she was
hmm,
like, well, because, and I was like, well, no, I'm just curious why. And then when she said, I guess I really don't know what she's done. And I said, oh, okay. I was just curious. And that was the thing that she came back to me like a week later and was like, wow, I haven't stopped thinking about our conversation. And it wasn't that
Yeah.
I said anything to her. I just said,
Right.
oh, sometimes you don't have to say anything. Sometimes the
Yeah.
silence speaks.
yeah,
Yeah. I I I also think you just brought up a really good point of, instead of like, what is it? FAFO, right? Like people are
Yeah.
saying that.
Yeah.
I think there's an opposite way of just actually asking the question, like,
Yeah.
why, and just being able to hold space to either be
Yeah.
quiet and listen or have them reflect on it. That is, you're right, Barbie. It's like, it is so powerful. I
Yeah.
hope to see that one day.
Yeah.
I haven't, I have, I have been in a bubble for a reason, so it's not like
Mhm.
outside
Yeah.
of my circle at work, I don't really talk about this much, or let's be honest, I just don't leave the house at this moment. So
Me neither. I
Mm.
garden. I have a fabulous garden.
There you go.
yeah,
I love that.
yeah.
I think
I do have to go in the office, and I go into the community a lot. That's where I go.
that's
I
important.
which I love, but I'm really good at going into spaces, but it's starting to get, I'm afraid. I was a little afraid when they were bombing the mailboxes,
Right.
the drop boxes. That was a period of time because they were close to my office,
Yeah.
in Vancouver, and but it wasn't related to me or anything like that, but just that.
Yeah. I yeah, I was gonna say it's really hard when you are already there's a lot of uncertainty and like uncertain energy going on where it can feel really like anything could happen and there's a
Mm,
lot of extremes going on and it's hard to predict what's going to happen and it's scary. And then when you're also working in a public agency where people are actively protesting or upset about what you're doing or misunderstanding that, it can be really scary. Like people have a real like they feel very entitled to approach you as a person representing an organization and let you know how they feel about it. It's such a hard thing where you're trying to be out in community, but also there's like this sense of this heightened sense of uncertainty and unpredictability that can make it scary to do that. So
for
um
sure.
I'll share my struggle really quick, which is that I've been like in a deep state of having no energy and depression for so long. And then I got over the hill of this big scope of work. And then I came out on the other side and actually had some energy. Yay. And I get this moment sometimes where I find myself being like really productive and then being like, oh no, I'm going to burn myself out because I actually have
Mm,
energy to do stuff again. And when I actually have energy to do stuff, I like do a lot of stuff and then anyway, so it's a constant like up and down thing, but I've been trying really hard to just like be very intentional about like where I put my energy and my time and how I give my energy to spaces and people. Yeah, I just want to have a more sustainable I just want to have a more sustainable relationship with my
yeah,
energy than like this
yeah,
boom and bust mentality. Um, and things like the big one passing has risk of burning me out, and I'm just trying not to let it.
You can't.
Yeah.
Have you tried, and here's the creative idea, which is, have you tried journaling your energy level?
Oh
um
yeah.
and
Yeah.
starting to look at like patterns of when that, because I'm very much the same way. um and I always feel like if I don't start to watch, I'll fall into those cycles
hmm
of, and it used to be like I thought it was procrastination, but it's not. It's more like, what's the energy? Like,
mm,
do I need to replenish? What
Yeah.
did I just go through
Yeah.
that is now my brain needs to heal a little bit? Or like, what is the work that you're doing? Because I do a lot of different work, which
Mhm.
I think you're going to nod your heads, that sometimes it's emotional conversations that you have to manage or facilitate, tough conversations, et cetera, or weird meetings that you have to put on a mask, or
Yeah.
because you just want to get through it,
Yeah.
and or you have to put your brain on something that's really difficult and seclude yourself, and so you need different things.
Yeah, for
Just
Yeah.
like
sure.
those different things are expended, you need different things to replenish.
hmm I love that. I love that suggestion of actually journaling what happened and how I feel.
Yeah.
As opposed to sometimes when I get into journaling, I'm like, oh, I have to write a novel of the things because maybe I want to look back. And then you know what happens? I never do it because I'm like, that sounds like too much energy. But I love the
Mm-hmm.
suggestion of just being like, you know what? Energy level, not great.
Mm.
This maybe is what happened today, so that I can
Yeah.
so like you said, you can
Start to see the
understand maybe
patterns.
you're going to see patterns or
Well,
cycles or things like that.
yes, and it's one thing that's interesting. So here's something that which is really weird. Like I go out and give talks, right?
Mm,
And depending on how I connect with people, it'll energize me. And if I
mhm,
have a really good talk, like, oh man, I had one in February. It was at PCC and the room, standing room only. And I had
Mm.
people that were like, well, one woman came to a follow up meeting and she said, I'm here. I drove from Coos Bay because of you,
Oh, that's so
oh,
sweet.
because of what you said, what
Oh.
and like, yeah, it just like, I'm like, wow, that's really Coos Bay, man. I better get this together for you then. But I used to think that I needed to, like, when I came back, I need to have a glass of wine or go garden or like, replenish, right? But
Yeah.
it wasn't, because what I would do is I would seclude, and I wasn't feeding on the energy.
Mm.
mhm,
So what I started doing instead is like I would give a talk and then I would take my family out to dinner, and then
Oh.
I would talk about it and process, because I needed to
Mm.
process verbally, like with people, and make that connection. And then the next day, instead of feeling like down, I
mhm.
felt energized. I felt like
Aw.
I processed appropriately, instead of like I stepped on something and didn't let it come out.
Yeah.
So
I
think
like that.
about that, like what are you not doing? What are you stopping yourself from doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. And I think that too, something Erin and I talk a lot about on this show is chronic, like managing chronic illness and when like health things happen in your life while you're also trying to manage all of this. So I think that's also really smart too, to just like be keeping track not only of like how your energy is reacting to things, but also just like what is triggering different flare-ups for you. And like
Mm.
one of my symptoms that I manage with MS is like extreme fatigue. And it gets triggered by stress, which is
Mm.
hilarious because my job is so stressful. Um,
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
just like all I can do is laugh about it because I'm like, this is such a goofy career I have chosen for a disease that gets triggered by stress. But I've only been diagnosed for a year. And so now I get to like, now I'm in that process of really paying attention to like, oh, what is my body actually flaring up and reacting to my environment? And how can I be more cognizant of like how I'm showing up in spaces that are going to cause a flare up? Or how can I be more cognizant of like being able to anticipate, okay, these different things are going to happen over the next couple of
yes,
months, and then being able to say, how can I
yes,
navigate this in a way that's going to protect my energy and my stress so that I don't physically
yes.
have a detrimental reaction. And so that's
Mhm.
been like kind of empowering to know because I thought I was just bad at life and having like living life on
Oh
cart
my,
because I was like, gosh, this is so hard to exist. How do other people do it? And then my doctors were like, oh no, like you legitimately have a harder time existing. And I was like, oh, thank you. That's actually really helpful to know. I think the wisdom of being able to actually just be so present that you're noticing how your body is reacting regularly to different things and different triggers, whether it's because of your chronic illness or because of your, stress related to your work or, what brings you joy. I think that can be really empowering for people, not only to actually like find, is this fulfilling me? Are there other spaces where I could be more fulfilled given what gives me energy or not? And it can also just help more people like not get so burned out.
I love what you said about the pre-talk, because that's what I've been practicing. have PTSD. And the thing that bothers me the most about it is that I'm hyperchronic. So people scare me because and also I have ADHD. So I have terrible focus, which means, but I'm an attentive type, which means that I will spend 6 hours working on spreadsheets and not get up. I'll just get into it so much that I'll just be like 6 layers deep and doing all the things. And I've got all these windows open, but I'm doing, you know what I mean? Like, but I won't check my email or I won't check my chat. And then my boss he's like, I sent you a thing. And I'm like, dude, I was working. And it isn't that I'm not paying attention to the needs. It's that
you're just doing your job.
I've got the focus, and so I feel, so what's that balance, right? But so you will walk into a room and I will jump, but because I had trauma, what normally is like, oh, scared me, I will pull muscles.
I
will injure myself, and then 5 minutes later you can scare me again. So what I've been doing is telling myself when I'm gardening, like, I will do a self-talk and I will say, nobody's going to come up behind you and try to kill you. So if it's your son, it's not going to scare you. And if you hear a noise, it'll be fine. And I do like a self-talk, it makes me laugh because of course the squirrel is not going to kill me. And then I start laughing and I'm talking to myself in the backyard, but it has reduced the amount of times that my oldest son, Jasper, will come in and I will literally be like it's bad. So the pre-talk, the pre, how are we gonna react? I think makes a difference. I appreciate you sharing that because I'm also applying the same thing.
I think it just highlights that there are so many different things that people are dealing with, right? In like every space that we're in. And each of us have each shared like so many different things that we're trying to navigate just on our own nervous system and our own health. And so reminding ourselves when we show up to these huge, impossible jobs that like, hey, like you're gonna do your best today. You're navigating all this stuff. These people that you're working with are also navigating all of this. Like,
Yes.
I wish that our workspaces were more open to understanding all the stuff that we're all trying to navigate individually. I think would be really cool. I would respect the heck out of it. To wrap up our lovely conversation, which has been amazing, something we like to do to end on is a glimmer of the week or a celebration. So it's the opposite of a trigger. A trigger is something that initiates something negative in us, but a glimmer is something that gives us light or hope or a sense of awe or magic. It's really nice to be able to have these big conversations and dive into stuff and then end with like a nice time to reflect on like what is something that has brought out that spark and that magic for us, whether it's something as small as a kitten cuddle or something as big as like a huge win in our lives. But I wanted to make some space for that if anyone has a glimmer they'd like to share.
Well, I kind of do. I have met a couple people and some opportunities have come forward. They'd like to volunteer and help write like a curriculum-based program. And I think that they are the right partner to work on this.
I love that. Why am I not surprised that your glimmer is doing amazing work of building abundance of partnerships and opportunities and funding? That's amazing.
I'm just going to hand it all to you and watch the equity climate director just take over, man. Take over.
Loving this manifestation of a new title.
I know.
For me. This is great.
This is great. Also, yeah, my glimmer is total opposite. That. My glimmer is the fact that I am now invested in Love Island USA.
Yes.
And the finale is tonight. So Ori is going to be passing, but there is a couple on there, Nick and Olandria, and they started out with other partners, and then through the whole season, you've actually seen them progress into this like wonderful relationship that's like a slow burn, but it's actually a very healthy way in 6 weeks, right? Like they have become friends and they're not like trying to jump into anything, but
the internet calls them Nicolandria. Everybody's on board. They can't wait till they get out of this villa because like it's a beautiful relationship, and it like gives me hope that someday maybe I too or other people will have slow burns as well, because it's just like a beautiful thing, and it's such trash TV.
I love it.
So Kat, let's close it out, my friend.
My glimmer is I spent all week working on what I need to do to stay feeling okay in this world and getting energy, which is my art and my crafting and my creativity. And yesterday I had a chance to have a booth at, it's called Milwaukee Days Fest. It's just a really cute
Milwaukee Days
craft market
I'm
fair.
familiar. It's fabulous.
My artwork, for anyone who is not aware, is all like flowers with eyeballs, and it's weird and it's surreal and it's cute and it's creepy, and it's just fun. It's whimsical, and I tell people that it like, for the right people, it like tickles this itch in their brain of like just kind of like, this is weird. I love it. And so I don't know, it's just fun. The amount of kids especially that come up and are just like, why is this flower staring at me? And I'm like, why not? Maybe like, it's just fun. And so I got to spend like 9 hours just connecting with people about my art and seeing that delight. It's not for everybody, but for the people it's for, it's like super for those people. And so it just tickles me, and it made me really happy to get to do that, especially since as I've mentioned, work in a huge bureaucracy where I don't get to feel like I get to do really tangible, meaningful, immediate change. Getting to go and like directly connect with community in this way is something that just like makes me so happy. And
love creative community.
We do love it. Yes. That's my glimmer, is just getting to like to be like, despite all of the silly, awful things in this world, getting to connect with people on like just little whimsical moments, and those moments of delight are just so magical. And I love a space of magic.
Sure.
That's how Erin and I met, was through spaces of magic. So
yes,
love it.
Well, we
creative
need to
magic.
put
Creative
more
magic.
in the world. And I will just say, I'm a patron and a muse. I'm a muse for my husband. And,
I love that.
But really for everybody, because I love art. But anyway, this is just keeps going. I feel like this is an ongoing conversation. I absolutely love you both, and I appreciate your time today. And this is the first time I've ever done anything like this. I would love to spend more time with you. So thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. We just really appreciate you.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And like I said, I have someone who I have a guest for you.
I would love a guest.
Oh my God.
Tell your friends. I think with this work that we're trying to do with Surviving Service, it really is like we're trying to plant this seed of really bringing to light how we can work differently and how we can really elevate stories of vulnerability and perseverance and resilience and joy in the service and public and everything sector. And so the more we can pollinate those seeds and get them out there and share those stories, I think just like the bigger the movement can become. So we appreciate you sharing anyone you think that would be a great guest. And then also for anyone listening, if you can, share this with people that might resonate with. If you have people that you think would be a good guest, please let us know. And if you want to also write in stories, we are totally here to read your experiences, your struggles, your glimmers, your celebrations. They can be anonymous, or they can be, not anonymous. The other option.
Take your credit.
Because I know sometimes when you're sharing stories, you're like, I would like this to not have my name or my organization on it. But I need to get off my chest. And so we have an email that you can send things to, survivingservicepod@gmail.com.
Oh, I'm going to be sending some emails.
Please do. Oh, yeah.
Yes, please.
I love it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barbi. We really appreciate you.
Enjoy your day.
Yes, thanks you also. Surviving Service is independently created and produced by Kat Davis and Erin Riley. The music featured in today's episode is Callisto by Katie Double. You can find more of Katie's music at the links in our episode description. Join the community and spark new connections by following us on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at surviving_service, and reach out to share your own stories of service-driven work, all the things that make us laugh and cry, all the tips, tools, and tricks to get through by sending them to survivingservicepod@gmail.com. Together, we will go from surviving to thriving. Hang in there, we got this.